Okay, we're going to begin in just one moment. We have to begin on time because we are being live streamed. So there's people who couldn't make it that are going to join us online. So if you could grab your coffee and grab your snack and have a seat. We have a very exciting 45 minutes for you that I hope is exciting. It's been a long journey to get here, and we're excited to share it with you. So I move around a lot. Is that okay? I'm sorry. I'm not used to being on camera. Right. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for being here. As I just shared with you, this is kind of a culmination of a long journey of having a facilities plan ready to present to our community. There's two people in the room I would just want to acknowledge because they have been integral in this creation of this plan. So Ed DeWolf is in the back, and Ed is the head of our facilities committee and has been. And this beautiful building that we're in, the elementary school, Ed really led the work to have this building come to fruition. So he's the head of our facilities committee. And Luca is going to be speaking to you a little bit later on in the presentation. And he's the head of our foundation board, the president of our foundation board. And he's going to share it with you. These two have been here a lot longer than I have. They have been working on this project a lot longer than I have. And they are as knowledgeable, and I think Ed might be an actual construction expert by now in relation to building schools. But really, we have some really exciting news for you, but mostly for our kids today. And we're going to talk a little bit about our future. Because when you talk about your future, you should really take a moment to think about where we came from. And those of you maybe who have been here for a long time know this, but BFIS, this was the original school here. BFIS started from a very dedicated group of parents, and actually Bob and Seema Balser were the two people 32 years ago in 1986 that started BFIS. They were at another school. They wanted to start what they felt was like a real American school, and they left, and their children left, and some other parents left that school, and they created Benjamin Franklin International School. And they were very smart about that because they put a number of stipulations in the creation of the school about it being American and about it being international. So for example, you've all heard the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, where we really want to make sure that there's only 33% of one nationality. We want it to be a true international school. It's actually written in the bylaws that it will be an international school, and that's very exciting. That's what draws a lot of people here. There's, board members. There has to be 7 of 10 board members so that it actually keeps its American identity. So when they created the school 32 years ago, they were very smart in what they wanted. What they wanted was an international environment with an American base. That's why they put those stipulations in there. Tolerance, innovative, open to new ideas, Spanish American, grow and learn from an academic and human perspective. This was what their dream was. This is why they left the old school. This is why they established the new school. Here's the first graduating class. This might have been the first staff. This was the first year of the school. There were 120 or 130 students in 1986. So they did pretty well for a first year. And they started BFIS. So in order to do that, they actually had to mortgage their house because they had to come and get a new building and get supplies. And when you think about where we are today and what we're going to talk about today, I think it's important to acknowledge where we came from and the spirit in which the school was developed. American, Spanish, innovative, new ideas, Spanish and American students learning together on an academic and a human level. That's why this was created. And all of our focus and all of our decisions need to try and be consistent with why the school was created. And it was, of course, created and named after somebody that was innovative, a diplomat, creative, embodying all the things, Benjamin Franklin, of what we want for our kids. So as we make decisions as a board, as a school, as an academic team, these things need to be kept in mind because we want to continue to honor that. But the truth is, education changes. It's not the same as it was 32 years ago. The school can't be the same. And some of us, there's teachers at the school that actually were here when the school opened. They came over from the other school and they've been here since the school opened. And they talk about the smell that comes from the kitchen is different than it was 32 years ago. And the environment is different. But you know what? It has to be different. Things have to evolve. And this school has evolved. And when you think about over the last 32 years, what we know is that education and what our kids need have changed since 32 years ago. I suspect if I asked you, do you want us teaching your kids the same way they were taught in 1986? You might say no. That would be my guess. Our understanding of students' emotional and social needs have changed, especially at different age groups, especially at things like the middle school years. They are not secondary students. They are middle school students. They are adolescents, and they are going through different things than kids in IB are going through. And we understand that better now than we did 32 years ago. And we need to design spaces in which our progressive curriculum is able to be taught. In the letter that I wrote to you inviting to this meeting, one of the things I said to you was, we've seen teaching and learning look different in our new building than we did in our old building. And it's because the curriculum can come alive. There's space and opportunity and technology, things that your children need to enter the workforce they're going to enter. So what have we done? Well, in the last couple of years, you might see some of you on these photos if you participated in our strategic plan. We developed a process to have the next 5 years completely and totally planned out. We know what we're going to do this year and next year and next year and next year until 2022. And we did that collectively as a community. We had 400 members of the community involved in this process. And we had meetings. Some of you might have been at these meetings that were really kind of fun. This is the teacher meeting. This is the meeting with the founders. We had a session specifically with the founders that were still alive and still in Barcelona about what they wanted for the school. And then we went off campus and we had a 2-day retreat that was facilitated by an outside facilitator to bring us to what we wanted to focus on. And here we have a number of our students were involved. We see things like personalized student-driven learning, active and engaged community, character. Remember in the very first slide, academic and human, character. Building a 21st century curriculum. Look at this one. This is the one we're going to talk about today. Facilities, building technology, highly effective teachers. These are things that our community demanded were in the 5-year strategic plan. So guess what? They're in there. So when we look at what the strategic plan looks like, we're not going to go through the strategic plan because we're focusing on one section today. We see the strategic plan, the 4 pillars are character, teachers, 21st century curriculum, and community. That's what came out of our session. Today, we're going to talk about one aspect of strategy 3, which is the 21st century curriculum. We will offer and evaluate a 21st century curriculum, ensuring students will be ready to excel in a changing world. And this is what we're going to do for it. This is our curriculum strategy. And we're going to do every single one of these. But today, we're focusing on this one, which says we will modify or create learning spaces that support 21st century curriculum. So I just wanted to give you a context of where we are in relation to the strategic plan of the school, because all of our decisions need to be based on the plan we collectively developed. And this is what we're doing today. When you look at our spaces, you will know that from 2014 to 2016, we built this building. Ed built this building. And a group of parents and constructors planned and built this building. Obviously, the planning happened much before 2014. It would have happened much earlier. And it was completed in September of 2016, which was the actual year I arrived. So I arrived in July, and it was done in September. That's efficiency, you see. 2 months, I delivered a new elementary school. And, of course, the cafeteria was finished this year as well, and that was a big need. Now we're going on to phase 2, and all of the planning happened before 2018. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is 5 brand new classrooms that are actually going to start construction in less than 2 weeks, and a beautiful new middle school building, which I'm going to show you. We can't stop there because we need to do more. We need to acquire land, and we're continuing to look at the land around the school to be able to get that to build on it. And we know that we need to focus on the high school building, the gymnasium, outdoor spaces, and the early childhood. These are phases that are in the future and depend on how fast and efficiently we get some of the earlier phases done. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. So this was, if you would have come on campus 3 years ago, this was an elementary classroom. Do you know where this is? Anybody know where this is? It's in the modules, right? This is in the modules. This is the classroom. This is the classroom in the modules. This is this year. I see Miss Bolt's here. This is the 5th grade class in the modules. Now, this is what your kids have in the elementary school. Big, open, bright spaces. You see flexible seating. Some of you see your kids there. I see your faces lighting up. Big spaces where kids can go and learn. This might look like a regular hallway, but if you look at the end, there's a learning space at the end, a collaborative learning space. These are things that couldn't have happened in the old building. Who knows what this is? The old cafeteria. Yeah, this is what they did. They made do, and boy, did they do a good job. Kids loved being in there. The feeling, the environment was positive. But now they have this. And the feeling and the environment is positive. But now it's more spacious, and it's more up to date, and all of the kitchen equipment is new, and everything is much, much better. It's progress, right? It's progress. This is them eating. Okay, 5 stars for whoever knows what this is. Anybody knows what this is? This is the space. Look, this is the Orwell building in the back. This is the space we're currently sitting in. That was a court. And another 5 stars, if you can tell me what this is.
That's the old building.
This was the early childhood building. So you think about coming up the ramp into the school, where the court is, this is what you saw. So we have, we have this, and we have this, and now we have this. That's progress. So now what? Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, especially from July to September of 2016. It's specifically good. So what next? So what do we see here? What's this? currently our modules? Well, when you look at this in September of 2020, you're going to see this. You are going to see a brand new middle school. You are going to see buildings that actually give us the same benefits as the elementary building that we have now.
No patio?
No, it's there, you just can't see it. Your questions will come at the end, don't worry. Relax. Relax, relax. This is the side of the building, which is going to be really interesting because we're going to have middle school and elementary school kids in the same city block, right? Which is good for a number of reasons, safety being one of them. They're going to have a nice entrance here, and our middle school students, we're going to be able to see it in a video in a second. The middle school students will come in and they will enter around the side, and the elementary students will enter as they normally do. This is what it's going to look like from this angle. This will be the patio just like it is now. It'll be the same. There's dots on there right now, but it's actually the same patio with new patio equipment that they're going to have now. And you see the new classrooms that are being built. You'll see them down here already. You see them in here. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. Let me see if we can see it. This is the space you're talking about here. So you'll see, here's the entrance. This is going to be the entrance for the middle school around the side of the building. Look at this new, it'll be a beautiful new entrance here. At one point in this video, there was like a Lamborghini here. We had to remove that. We had to remove that. The side of the building. These are classrooms, levels 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. The back of the building. These are the doors that you see that we come out of the elementary school now. You can see them laying your way. These are going to be all the light down in the classrooms on the bottom floor and then around the side as well. So when you look at this new space, what you will see is, of course, the emergency staircase, which must go through the middle of the building. You will see an elementary school. So if you think about your children, they will graduate kindergarten, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they'll move across to the other side, not to the other side, but to the other side of the staircase, 6, 7, and 8. We are looking at now, as you think about classrooms, because this is what changes teaching and learning. There'll be 18 new classrooms in this building, and there's space drivers. So we're in the process of designing what the classrooms are going to look like. And they're not going to look like classrooms where you just have rows of desks and chairs, because that's not what teaching and learning looks like anymore. Again, 32 years ago, it looked more like that. If you go into our elementary school right now, it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like that at all. It looks very different and collaborative. There's places for the kids to be able to sit and listen, for the teachers to be able to do direct instruction, which is necessary, not all the time, but sometimes. But then there's other opportunities for them to sit and collaborate and work together. So we're looking at different models. Actually, teachers from every department, the architect, our coaches, our school administrators are working collaboratively to actually design the classrooms. And these are the things that drive space. We want open space. We want to have places where kids can learn, where it isn't typical learning spaces. You know, we see floor-to-ceiling whiteboards in classrooms so kids can go up and work on the wall and get up and stand up and work on the wall. We see places where there's high desks and low desks. We see places where they can connect their computer and work collaboratively together, because it's one-to-one. Remember, it's a one-to-one environment now in middle school. So we need to take in the technology to make sure it's being used appropriately. We're looking at wall dividers. How can we use big spaces and make them into small spaces? or vice versa. When we want to have big classes or big groupings, how do we do that? And we're looking at places to move the walls, to be able to move walls back and forth. We have that in a couple of places in the school now, but we need more of those spaces. And we want places that are cozy for students. We're looking at things like plugs, where the plugs go. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but the room and the development of the school has to be around where things like plugs are, and adapters, and uses of technology, and big open spaces. Some of the exciting things that you will see, we also want social space. That was important for us. And some of the things that you will see, this is what a class hallway would look like. I mean, it's a narrow view of it, but this is actually a rendering of what the hallway would look like. If you'll notice, there's big, just like in the elementary school, there's big, bright windows to be able to look in, and there's windows on the other side, and there's lockers. There's spaces for kids to be able to move around. Remember, these are middle school students. This is kind of going to be the feature of the school. On the ground floor, so over on the ground floor, there's going to be a huge community space. It's going to have breakout rooms for students. It's going to have a section of the library where students can have direct instruction, and it's going to be a big open space where students can go in and enjoy and relax and be in a library. There's going to be technology all around the outside of the school, of the room, and it's going to be right on the ground floor. So as you walk up now, when you enter the school in the morning and you turn left, this is where you will be, right here. You'll be looking at this big, beautiful library common space. And again, this is all being developed and will be developed before the Christmas break. Here's a small view of the classrooms, of what they may look like. Different sorts of furniture, different sorts of seats, technology on wheels so that it's mobile, whiteboards. We have lots of light in the room. We have a very, very, very big teacher as compared to the room for some reason. So he may be 8 foot, I don't know, who knows, but it seems like a very big teacher. Science labs, there'll be 2 science labs in the basement, and there'll be a design lab. The science labs were designed by our middle school science teachers, and they have furniture that actually moves, connected to the floor, but moves in and out so that the students can be working in a group, or they can be working watching the teacher for direct instruction. You'll notice that there's lots of open space here and lots of light. It will have all of the bells and whistles of, appropriate science labs and safety features and the things that it needs. So these science labs will be on the bottom floor, which is this floor, like this. And then we will have a design lab, which could be used for design classes, makerspace, things like that, depending on the needs of the students. It's going to be a very flexible space. At the end of each hallway, we thought it was really important for students to have space to kind of hang out and socialize. So there's going to be some social spaces developed. We're going to actually do that with the students around the ends of the hallway. So if you think about a 6th grade floor, they'll have a number of their classes there, not all of them, but a number of them. Their lockers will be there, and there'll be a space for them to be able to be with each other. The plan is for them to be able to have kind of their own space in some ways, but yet they're not high school kids yet. So they shouldn't be, running wild, over the school. So it's like a progression, a release of responsibility progressively, which is what is supposed to happen in the middle school years. So that's something that this building is designed to do. Some other things about the project that I think are really important. Some of the new rooms that are going to be built, I shared with you right above us. It's actually going to happen right above us, and it's going to start during Christmas break, like in 10 days. It's going to begin. When you come back after the break, you'll see that it's kind of cordoned off a little bit. There's going to be a brand new, big, beautiful art room for elementary students. It's actually going to be right over here against the wall because we wanted to use the light for the art room. There's going to be 4 other additional classrooms and offices and bathrooms right above us. There's going to be, I think your kids are going to be happy about this, change rooms. Change rooms for PE, change rooms for sports events, change rooms for different activities. There's going to be in the new building a teacher professional learning center. So a place for teachers to be able to go and learn and do PD. You know, sometimes we do a lot of PD here, and sometimes because we don't have a good space for it, we have to go off campus to the hotel down here to Angli. We walk down and we do it in a conference room because we don't really have the space. If we took the space, it would be taking it from students. So we don't want to do that. So in this project, there's a professional learning center for all teachers to be able to do PD. There's going to be a language lab for our Catalan, Spanish, and French classes on the top floor that are going to have a view of the city. As I said, there's going to be 4 additional classrooms right above us. There's going to be a great rooftop in the new building with solar panels and outdoor space. We're seeing science classes be able to use this. We're seeing, you know, a number of teachers have recommended a cafe up there and parents. We're seeing learning experiences being able to happen. We're seeing breakout rooms for students, quiet breakout rooms in the library. We're seeing more office space, more learning support room, more storage, and of course, a new school entrance and guard station. So these are things that are all coming with this new project. All things that have been needed at the school for a while and exciting. You know, I know you might not be able to read this, but we have been doing some significant planning with our faculty. A couple of weeks ago, we had 20 faculty members come together from different departments to design the classrooms of this new building so that students would be at the center. At the end of that 2-hour session, we asked the teachers to write a note to the future middle schoolers that were going to be in this building. And here are some of the notes that they wrote. And I think some of them are really cool. But I think my favorite, because it really exemplifies middle school, is this one. I love these words. You do you. That exemplifies what middle school kids need. They need the comfort to be who they are. And as we know, as I look around the crowd, I suspect here everyone has gone through middle school. It is a very, very challenging time for kids as they learn and grow. And we want kids to be able to be who they are. And this is a true middle school statement. I love that a teacher wrote this. But these are the things that teachers are perceiving or you know, looking to the future of students of what they will have. Loving learning, collaborative spaces, spaces that are developmentally appropriate and you can call your own. These are spaces that we are planning to build for our middle school kids. But there's areas to manage. Maybe a lot of your questions here. Because when you do construction, while school is going on, you are faced with challenges. It's very normal. And it's actually not going to be kind of happening on the side of the campus. It's going to be happening, in essence, in the middle of the campus. And for 14 months, it's going to challenge us. It's going to challenge all of us. So some of the things that we need to be considering and managing, which of course the planning and all of this has already begun, is that for 14 months, we're going to be in a construction zone. And we have not yet selected the contractors, but the only contractors we're considering are contractors that have actually worked in schools while they were in session, because the safety features necessary for a construction zone are significantly different than if you're working in a business or on a site of some other sort where there's no one around. When children are around, it's a very different situation. So that's one of the things we're going to be managing. There will be reduced elementary play space for a year. Remember, I told you that the planning of this started years ago. If you notice, we have 2 new play spaces for elementary kids. One is the rooftop and one is the blue area in the back. These were all required to be finished before we could start this because we wanted other options for kids. At some points, some of the court will be taken up. Sometimes it's a small part of the court, sometimes it's a big part of the court. And we wanted students to be able to have options in other places. Noise. We're going to have to be working with noise, and we're going to have to be talking to constructors about the noise while kids are trying to learn, because it's going to be very close to where they are. So we need to be dealing with that. Much of the big, heavy stuff of the, the digging, that was an official sound, but that's going to happen during summer. And we've planned around summer, we've planned around breaks, we've planned around, trying to minimize any sort of conflict with students. Less office space and classrooms during construction. So we're going to be, removing the modules. We're going to be adding classrooms up here, but it's not the same amount. So we're going to have, things like the Spanish classes in elementary, for example, will be taught in the students' classrooms rather than going to Spanish. A couple of high school teachers that are presently in the modules are going to have to go over and teach in the middle school, high school building for a year until this is built. These are management things that you should know about. Frustration and tolerance levels. I've been through 2 schools that have gone through construction, and everybody's excited about the final product, except in like October and November. People are at their wits' end with the sound and the this and the that, and it's completely normal. That's normal because it's out of our regular routine, and it's not optimal. It's having that perspective of short-term pain for 20 years, 30 years of gain. And it's okay if you're getting the gain. It's difficult when you're dealing with the pain. And that's a very normal thing. Serena's been talking with new families already that are coming next year and has been very transparent about, I want you to know that this is going to happen, and it'll be a little bit of a unique year. For me, who really is supposed to be the academic leader of the school, the thing I want to manage most, which is why we have such a great leadership team, is to be sure that the academic quality is not impacted by bricks and mortar. It's very important that we keep our eye on the ball. As you know, so many fabulous things are happening here, new projects, consolidation of curriculum, exciting initiatives, and yes, we need to make sure they are continuing to be consolidated. And we can't get our eye off the ball because we're building. And it's really important that we do that. So those of you who don't have middle schoolers or who are figuring out, okay, well, what's in it for me? Because I only have high school kids. How does this benefit my child? Well, that's a good question. What will happen when this is built is 42% of the students that are currently in the middle school, high school building will be moving over here. And what that means, of course, is that there's a lot more space for the high school kids, a lot more. And it's needed. It's needed because we need to make sure they have spaces that they can use. High school classrooms will be shifted because, we have some small rooms and some bigger rooms. We want all of the classrooms in the bigger rooms, and we want to repurpose the smaller rooms for other areas and other reasons. We want to make sure that our IB kids have designated study spaces and social spaces, because presently they don't have that because there's a lot of students in that building. And that's something we've heard from students over and over. I have no place to study. It's difficult to study. And we hear that because it's true. They don't. And we need to make sure that's prioritized. The high school library, which is the place to study, will actually be a high school library. If you ask your high school students, why can't you study in the high school library? They will tell you it's because there's a lot of middle school kids running around the high school library. And one of the things that's going to be a benefit is that they will move over to the middle school. And the other benefit is that once this project begins, we need to start planning for the high school, right? Because the next stage, the next phase is to redo the high school, to either renovate it or to begin construction later on a new high school. But the timeline of that is completely dependent on how fast we can pay off the middle school. Because we can't, we're not a big school. We have 700 students. We have 400 families. We cannot afford to be having these huge financial outlays, one right after the other, right after the other. So we are looking at different models in order to be able to pay for this building. Luke is going to talk to you about that just for a second. But the answer is, when is the high school going to be built, which is totally in the plan? The answer is, as soon as we can pay off the middle school so that we can financially handle it. That's the answer. And that might be 3 years from now or 10 years from now. We're hoping that it's more like 3 or more like 4. But it depends on the financial model and the support that we can get from parents for things like donations, for things like tuition increases. Because if we're going to do this and we're going to continue to provide these progressive buildings that we all want, then we need to find a way to pay for them. The school is obviously in very, very healthy financial health, but when you have an outlay of millions of euros year after year, no organization can sustain that. So, Luca, do you want to talk about money? You're the money guy. Actually, Tony's here too.
I'm definitely not the money guy. So, to be center camera. So before everyone gets nervous about tuition, because I think Colin left a few cliffhangers there, we're working on the budget for next year. There's not currently a plan in place to pay for this through big tuition increases. I want to say that now. We already have consulted banks, and our line of credit is very strong. The financial stability of the school is very strong. We are moving forward under the assumption that whatever money we cannot raise from donors, that will be financed through a bank loan and a credit line. And we have favorable terms. So there's not a plan to pay for this through tuition. I think once we start looking at those secondary phases of, okay, what do we do at the high school? Then that conversation with the community becomes, okay, we can do this faster or we can do it slower, and how do we want to do this? We haven't had that conversation. Okay, and when we do, we will include all of you in that conversation. So I just want you to feel fairly secure. I mean, the budget and the tuition amounts will come out probably in early February. But the budget as it stands now does not contemplate large tuition increases. Okay, so that's just the first thing. As we select contractors also, we have a fairly rigorous process. We started, again, just as soon as the strategic plan ended, we immediately started thinking about exactly how the facilities were going to play out. We did a competitive bidding process with architects. We chose who we thought would be the best experienced and affordable architect, helped us design the building all the way through to complete details. We're now in the process of contracting the actual construction crews who will build this ground floor level, which will start next week, and those contracts are signed. And we're in the process of bidding out the construction of the larger building. So it is a very competitive process. We follow a very rigorous methodology. Belen and Anna Arroyo, who are in charge of facilities here, are excellent at ensuring high quality and demarcating the kinds of the quality of the building and materials that we want to use. So I think we can feel like we're in fairly good hands. I feel confident that we're getting a good economic deal, and I feel confident that we can pay for it without, as it stands, and as this particular phase of construction, no major change to the way we're operating. So these are the costs for the buildings. Again, ground floor, middle school, all inclusive. It's still a steep bill. It's 4.4 million. This school, just as a quick reminder, we'll do our financial presentation probably in February or March once the audit is closed, but we're making a little more than 9 million in annual revenues as a school, mostly from tuition and fees. We have 85% of our costs are teachers. This is not a complex financial institution. There's not a lot of room for movement. We're in an international education field. We have to pay competitive teacher salaries. There's not a lot of ways we can go with this. So we do know that given our current financial situation, we have mostly paid off this building already. So we have very little leverage for people who like financial terms. We have very low leverage right now. We already have consulted with banks on this amount. And we know that we can finance it with fairly good economic conditions still. The economy is good, so we're getting, I think, terms that are very favorable to us. And we're seen as a very low risk investment by the banks in the city of Barcelona who like the international education model. And there's a lot of other schools in the city, and we're all seeing very favorable terms. So very transparent about the cost of the building. We are, of course, looking for donors who can help us to pay for this, because we would love to start on the other stuff sooner rather than later. But for the time being, we can move forward with this as it is. So again, in February, we'll do the sort of comprehensive state of the school, where we review the financials, and we'll go over the tuition, the budget, the audit from last year, and our projections moving forward. But as it stands right now, it will be a cost of living adjustment kind of thing for tuition next year, which doesn't reflect the cost of this building per se. What would you add?
I think that, so let's just look at the timeline. This is the last slide for you. Let's look at what this will look like. So the construction of the classrooms above us, so 4 classrooms, 1 art room, 2 bathrooms, 1 office. They will happen in December, and they will be completed in April. So we only have 3 months above us. So in April, 3 months from now, 4 months from now, we'll have this complete. During Semana Santa, this is where you will see change. You will see significant change. We are going to, in essence, move everyone out of the modules during Semana Santa. That means the Spanish classes will happen in the elementary school. Some of those teachers will move to the new building, to the new rooms. We will have a couple of the high school teachers move over to the other building. So the plan during Semana Santa is to clear out the modules of teachers and then start to remove the materials, things like technology and internet things and furniture and stuff that's of value. And then we are going to remove the modules. So there will be, by the end of the year, a big hole there. We are stopping everything during IB exams. So we will start to remove everything until May 1st, which is the day that IB exams begin. And at that point, there's a freeze until IB exams are over, because we don't want any sort of distraction for our IB kids. They will continue on until final exams. Final exams are for our other grade levels, 9, 10, and 11 for the most part. And that's only about a week. It's about a week where that happens at the end of June. And we have to freeze during that time so that there is no, and the thing is, this is a little bit easier because those exams finish usually around noon for the most part, so they could continue in the afternoon. And then as soon as the students leave, I mean, you may see it as you take your kids out for the summer, you will see things coming in, and that will be constructors to start removing. They will be removing the modules here. Hopefully they'll be done so that in July, the beginning of July, the actual construction of the middle school building begins. And the plan, and I know that this is a very aggressive and optimistic plan, but we are holding constructors to this as much as we can, and we're working with them to make sure that this can happen. Although, as we know, deadlines for construction don't always finish on time. The plan is for the following September, we will be able to open the school. That's the plan. So next year will be, the rest of this year and next year will in essence be the construction phase. And then in September 2020, so if you currently have a 6th grader, next year they will go to 7th grade. They will be in the other building. And then for their 8th grade year, they would be the ones to open the new building. So 6th grade, 5th grade, and 4th grade currently will be the kids that would open the new building, 6, 7, and 8. And we figured out actually, if you currently have a 2nd grader, put your hand up if you have a 2nd grader. If you currently have a 2nd grader, you have hit the jackpot with BFIS buildings, because they opened the new elementary building, right, in kindergarten, By the time they get to the middle school, even the bugs will be worked out and they're in a new middle school. And then you're giving us 5 to 7 years. So good timing for you and good work. So that's kind of the timeline. Exciting. Very, very exciting. I think it's exactly what the school needs. It's exactly what this community has demanded and what this community deserves. So I want to, again, we're going to open it up for questions for any of us. Ed, who again is helping us lead through the facilities committee this work. Luca, as president of the foundation board, or myself. But I really want to acknowledge so much of this happens behind the scenes with licenses and governments and permissions and, moving, this over and where this window goes, and it has to be a foot over here, and the window can only go this many inches, but we haven't designed this many inches, so we need to bring it down. How is the power going to get there? There's so much that happens behind the scenes before a presentation like this can happen. And that work is being done by the foundation board, by the facilities committee, and by our team here, Anna Arroyo, who's our CFO and director of operations, and Belinda Bravo, who's our site manager. That work is significant. And then we can turn our attention to the other side of the road about things like courts, spaces, I don't know, theaters. I dream big. Theaters, gymnasiums, outdoor spaces, a revamp of the space over on the other side could provide all that. So when you think about the long-term plan, let's go back for the last minute of this presentation to the why, to the 32 years ago. This is the reason they developed the school. This is the strategic plan our community developed. And now it's implementation time. And that's what you're seeing. Okay? So we still have about 10 minutes. If you want to ask a question that you think is important for the whole group, you can. If you want to stay back and ask a question that is just personal to you or something, you can do that. But it's not a lot of time where we have the key players in the same room at the same time. So if you have any questions, please, Helene?
Is there a basement? Like now we have basement here. Is
Yeah.
there a basement in this view?
Yeah. So the same level as this will be the science labs, the design lab, and the change rooms. See, in the long-term plan, the change rooms are there because our hope, if we get a magical 900,000 euro donation,
For the low price.
for the low price of 900,000 euros, we can immediately begin building a gymnasium underneath the court, which is am I pointing in the right direction?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Not here, underneath this court.
Yes, it's good.
We have permission to do it, and the change rooms are actually being built on that floor so that students can go from the change rooms into the gymnasium. So we are planning for that to happen. It's not financially feasible yet, unless we get some sort of donation for it to happen. We actually already have the approval for it to happen. And it's not a very complicated construction project. So we actually could do it sooner. We just can't pay for it yet. So we're waiting for an angel donor to show up and say, is that a volunteer for the angel donor? Oh my goodness, Tony, this is great news.
I told Tony.
Yeah, of course, I'm teasing.
Really need it.
Yeah.
That somebody do the donation, like probably.
Yeah.
And also I think that it's very important that everybody donate a little bit.
Yeah.
Because not like looking for a big donation that
Right.
everybody could donate a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
But also have some questions.
Yeah. That's a really great, thank you for saying that. That's absolutely an important point. I'm sure my mom used to say to me, many hands make light work, right? If all of us contribute some, then a few of us don't have to contribute all. And it makes a big difference, and it will have this, I mean, our goal, I mean, Luke and I, when I took this job, talked about, what's the school gonna look like in 5 years and in 7 years? And we wanna provide this for you. This is not for you, for your children. We want it. They deserve it. They want it. And we see the transformation, you see, that the elementary building has made, and we want that for all of the divisions. And that's kind of a hope. And many hands make light work. So I think your point is perfect. I mean, when you're asked for a donation, there isn't some ulterior motive here. It's to go to this, so we can do that faster. That's the reason. Okay. Any last comments or questions?
I have a question.
One and then two. One and then two. Please.
First question is, in the long term, middle school is going to be there forever?
Yes.
Because I don't understand, because there are more connection between middle and high school than middle and elementary. First of all, they share the same principal. Second of all, they share a lot of professors.
Yeah.
And I think it's more difficult, the connection with the two.
Yeah. So did you hear that question? Because it's an excellent question, right? They will not share the same principal once the middle school opens. We will have
More expensive.
No. I mean, there are efficiencies. There are positions that we won't need anymore, and we need a middle school person. We need a middle school person in the middle school. We need middle school teachers in the middle school. So there will be teachers that will be teaching middle school and high school. There's no question about that. But we are now recruiting teachers, because we know this is 2 years out, that are middle school specialists. Teachers that, middle school teachers are different. I don't know if you've had middle school, they're kind of unique. They're, they really connect with the adolescent. And not all teachers do. Some are high school teachers and some are elementary teachers, but there's a unique profile of a middle school teacher. We currently have some, and we are recruiting others. 150, 160.
Because I had a feeling that there are not so many students who have their own professors that to be very specialized, and second of all, to have another principal. Because we are like a very small school,
Right.
to duplicate some positions that we really, I don't know how it's true, but I really know that we don't want it to be expensive.
We don't want to do that. But there are positions that we won't need. We won't need as we move over. Like, we can't have a principal and an associate principal. We're not big enough for that, right? So if we have a middle school principal, we won't need an associate principal because the numbers are going to be small enough. I mean, again, these ratios are very, very common in international schools in the world. If you have a small middle school, you don't need a middle school principal and a middle school assistant principal. If you have a small high school, you don't need a high school principal and a high school associate principal. Now they're together, so you do need both of those things. But as we make a shift, you won't need both of those things. So if we add one, we can remove one.
So what you're basically saying is that we're gonna keep the same two positions that we have right now in middle
Right.
and high school.
Right.
And just split them off for
Right.
middle and high school.
Right. That's it. It isn't,
They are going to be two principals instead of associates.
right.
So they are not going to be associates.
Exactly. There won't be any associates.
And what about the professors? Because now they share a lot of professors.
Some of them do, but not a lot of them don't. So teachers right now are choosing between middle school or high school, but we know that we're going to have many teachers doing exactly what they're doing right now. They're going to be teaching middle school or high school. We're not big enough to be able to make a clean split between both of them. We can't. No, we can't do that. We can't do that.
We cannot divide it or because that means in that research, because right now the professors that they have their own classes. And
Yes.
if you have the same professor in
Yes.
middle school and in high school,
Yes.
the same professor going to have two classes.
No, the students will move just like they do now.
Yeah,
It won't be any different.
No. Yes, they move,
Yeah.
but if you have the student of middle school in this building, and if you have the student of high school in the other building, and the same professor needs to have a class in middle school and a class in high school.
No, those are logistics. But that isn't the case. So if we have a teacher teaching 8th grade science, for example, and they teach 10th grade science, let's say that. right? Say they teach mostly 8th grade science. They'll be in the middle school. That's where they'll be stationed, in the middle school. And when the 10th graders have science, they will come over just like they do now. Just like they do now.
like a math classes.
Yeah.
But there will-
This is the reason we have also high school students in the middle school buildings.
Sometimes we will. Sometimes we will.
Yeah, but I don't understand why we don't do the construction in the other side, that they have more connection middle school with high school.
On the other side of the,
Yes.
we can't do that yet. We can't do that yet. We don't own the land. We can't construct it. We own this land. We don't own the land across.
And we cannot buy the house.
Well, we can. We'll try.
But you're not-
You've already donated the gym, so that's good.
I'm going to be the first one to
But that's a good question, right? I think that's important. Did you hear that question? I think it's really important. Why don't we go over there first, right? It's seemingly the one that has the most need, right?
Yeah.
Right? We don't own the land. We don't own the land over there, so we can't construct a building on land that we don't own. Here, we already own the land that we can do it.
When we did, I remember being here like, I don't remember how many years ago.
Yeah.
But when they did the presentation of the rent of that building,
Mhm.
and they said that it was a rent with the possibility to buy.
Exactly. Yes.
And we have the right to do if we don't do
Yes.
it because of the money,
We have the
I
rent.
think it's
and the
more
possi-
important to buy and do the right, to have the better long-term school for the long term, because it's better for us to have the middle school and the high school together. Why do this just because we don't have the money to do the buy of the other building? This is the thing that I don't understand.
It isn't better to have the middle school and high school together. That's not the American philosophy, and that's not what any international school
No,
does.
just the case because we share the professor.
Right,
Not
right.
because
I
we are
understand.
the same. And if we share the professor, we need to have the moving of the student plus the moving of the professor.
Right, right.
And that reason I think that it's important to have the
Yeah.
Before the entire design process started, this was the first conversation we had. What will the model of the school be? And we're going to adapt facilities to the model that the school chooses. Not the other way around. We're not going to build buildings and then fit it in. So that's one. Secondly, this side of the campus, we own. And years ago, and I'm talking 6, 7, 8 years ago, there was already, and this comes back to licensing, there was already a plan special made for the volume that we can build. And to develop a plan special takes anywhere between a year and a half to 2 years. So imagine that we can build across the road. We first have to buy it, then we have to get permission to build there. That's a 2-year process. And then there are specific difficulties with that plot over there, technical issues separating buildings, etc. That would take us another year or 2. So to develop on that piece of land over there is a long-term process. A process that we're actually, as we're starting this project, we're already starting to think and to move forward in that process, which is 4 or 5 years from now.
No, I understand.
And so to take that model and say, well, we want to have middle school and high school on the other side, it means that the school as is freezes for 5 years.
Yeah, but
That's
in
not a
this
possibility
case,
for
we do not have any.
BFIS at this point.
But in this case, we don't have the outside space for the children.
That's not entirely true.
Well, I
because-
don't live in this place.
But let me explain to you. We have a court that we never had before. Yeah? So the court outside here. The play space in front of the school remains the same. It connects to an inside library that we currently don't have, which is a massive open space. We have a rooftop on top that's as big as the rooftop on this building, which is also a space we never had. So I think in essence, in result, we have many more outside meters than we've ever had before.
Yeah, but the rooftop, now we have the roof as regards to, and it's not the same use. It's not the same for the children that go outside. Right now, if you see the children, they're, if you come when it's the time, the children really need a space to run, and the roof is not the same. And also here, the connection between all the elementary schools is so important. The space outside of it, for me, I think it's so important. If you do this construction, after, you never will have the possibility to have a bigger space. In the other, it's not the same necessity to be outside for an elementary school than for a high school and a middle school. They have different necessities. Well, the needs are different.
Space, I agree with you, space has always been an issue for BFIS. But even in the current situation, with this plan, we actually gain space in comparison to the current situation.
No way. Now you have all the building under, well, the one that.
We gain an entire rooftop. The play space will remain exactly the same, and we gain an entire rooftop. So we gain play space.
Okay, the children will play all the time in the room.
Okay, any other,
But this is not unusual.
No, it's just the way, no, because it's not the same if they are on this level than if they are in the roof.
Yeah, but we're there are this is a city, I mean, we're in the city and we maximize the space. There are other expansion plans around the school, like Colin said, at some point there are availabilities for purchase. They are also being considered, and trust me, I mean, we also see that, we like outside space, but outside space, unfortunately, at this point is a luxury.
it is, sorry.
Well, sorry, but not right now, this space that we are going to cover in 2 weeks is one of the spaces that the children use the most. Plus of that, if it's raining, there's no another space. If it's also when you need to pick up the children, when you need to leave the children, there are no other spaces. It's really a very useful space. Plus of that, you will have all the construction. I don't see, maybe of course you have, but there are no any places that the children could play. Plus this, because yes, you said in the future you will have the sport, but right now that the children will need it for the construction, you only have this space just this, because this roof, this part is going to be covered.
Yep.
And we are closing the only space that the children are playing now because they are going to do the construction. I really don't understand.
So the process. Yeah.
Okay, we said this would be an hour and it's been an hour and 2 minutes. So I know people have plans. If you would like to stay back and ask questions, we'll be happy to stay here as well. But I want to give permission to those who, committed to an hour. I would like to give permission for them to be able to leave. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening, and exciting times ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.